This video is sponsored by My Adorable One.
My name is Sonia. I am a portfolio manager and I'm a mother of one, a very adorable little boy. So I got married in July of 2018 and I found out I was pregnant in November of 2018. The truth is, the plan was to wait, but God disposes, so the plan didn't work. I was just, I'd missed my period, but I had taken drugs that would have messed up with my cycle. So I thought, oh, it's not really a big deal. But 1 month passed, 2 months passed, and I was like, no, this doesn't look normal anymore. So I went to take a test somewhere in October, and I wasn't pregnant. So I was like, okay, maybe it's still just messing up with my cycle. Then I was like, let me just wait a few more weeks and see. Then in November, I went back because this is just too long. And the test was positive, and I was surprised because I thought, oh, we're careful, but you know, like I said, God disposes. So yeah, we were pregnant, and that was that. When I was pregnant, everybody was like, I'm tall. So everybody notices me when I go out, like everybody sees me. But it was a whole different level when I was pregnant because everybody's like, hey, mame. Everybody's like, wow, have you eaten? Hey, your stomach is big, oh, what did you eat? Like the attention was a whole different level. Like I was very surprised because at that time, you're not necessarily feeling your best, but people are so nice to you. You end up maybe forgetting about how big your nose has become or something, and then you just enjoy the attention. I think, yeah, that was what I enjoyed the most about being pregnant. There were lots. There were a lot. Generally, I can say it wasn't that bad. There were a few interesting parts about it. Like, for the first 3 months, I couldn't drink water. 3 months, no water. All I could drink was juices. So I got all my liquid intake from juice. So in the morning, I would stop by a shop and buy some cereals and go to work. And I'll be sipping that through the whole day because I couldn't keep water down. When I drank water, I vomited. Then 3 months down the line, I could start drinking water now. I could keep the water down. The problem was I couldn't keep drinks down. Every drink was too sweet. So it switched and I became all water, no drink. Then there was the morning sickness. The thing about morning sickness is not just in the morning. So I would feel nauseated the whole day, but not every day. Some days are worse than some. So I had to go and buy bitter cola and chew that during the day because my mouth tasted horrible. And another thing was I couldn't eat in the beginning because I get heartburn. And the heartburn wasn't easy. Like I had to eat very small portions of food, else the heartburn would just keep me awake the whole night. But over time it subsided and everything came back to like, okay, I'm used to this now. Then it became, oh, I'm just tired because you're carrying a lot more weight around and all of that. So generally the beginning wasn't so pleasant. There was a time I had to stop on the way, like we were going home and my husband had to just stop in the middle of the road so that I could throw up. That was early days, but getting towards the end, it wasn't so bad. Back pain here and there, that kind of thing, but otherwise, it became smoother along the way, yeah. Okay, so you know how they say it's 40 weeks? And the baby can come out from week 36. I was praying. My prayer point was that God, let this baby come out by week 37. However, God had a different idea. So by week 37, I went to the doctor. The doctor said, oh, any day now. The baby will be coming any day now. I was like, oh, that's great. I'm ready for this. The bag is packed. We're good to go. Then week 38 came. No show. The doctor saw me and said, you're still pregnant. I was like, hey, mommy. And by that time, I was very tired. I was just ready for this baby to be out. It wasn't like, oh, I'm excited to even see my baby. I was tired. And honestly, I was working throughout the entire pregnancy, so the work stress plus the baby stress was a lot. There were times I was closing at 8, at 9, so by that time, I was ready for the baby to be out. But unfortunately, the baby did not come out and my due date passed. I was very surprised because I was expecting something totally different. And by the 40th week, I told the doctor, I'm tired, I can't do this anymore. So she said, okay, that's fine. If by this day he's not out, we will come back and we will induce. And I was like, okay, that's great. Because in my mind, I had a plan. I had decided that with my husband, we had a conversation. I decided that if the baby wasn't out by the due date, we'll try an induction before we'll do a CS. At that time, I was doing, strong woman, we have to do the natural way. But aside that, I had had a surgery before and I wasn't so keen on going through post-surgery recovery again. So I wasn't so keen on going for a CS. So the 40th week I went, she said I should come back in 3 days' time if the baby still wasn't out. And so the 40th week was a Monday, thereabouts. So it was a Sunday due date. And then Monday I went to see her again and she said, okay, no problem. I should come back on Wednesday for the induction to be done if the baby hadn't come out. The baby didn't come out. I had gone on long walks. I had done everything I could think of, but no show. So Wednesday, I packed my bag. It was already packed. I picked up my bag and went with my husband and my mother. And they gave me the medicine for the induction. So that day, I was basically in the hospital the whole day. But the interesting thing about that day, though, was I was submitting my long essay for my master's program. So I had to send my husband to the school to print out. He signed for me because I couldn't have gone with him to sign. I was being induced. And then he got my supervisor to sign, submit it, and he came back to me in the hospital. So yeah, that was what I was doing that day. Labor. So I was induced, which meant it didn't work the way the midwives would tell you during ANC. So the midwife said it would take up to 15 hours, active labor is 8 hours, some plenty mathematics we were doing. So I was ready for some long protracted labor, but because it was an induction, the doctor came in and was like, we have given you the medicine. So by 3 o'clock, the baby should be out. That was like 8 in the morning. So by 3 o'clock, the baby should be out. The medicine, it didn't take effect till 5 p.m. So I was waiting from 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 3 p.m., and I was like, this doctor, he lied to me or what? So the doctors told me I couldn't eat while the medicine was in my system. So I was hungry. And I asked the nurse that, Charlie, the 3 p.m. has passed. So what's up? I'm hungry. And they said, go ahead, you can eat. We'll try again tomorrow. So I ate. And then around 5 p.m., I started feeling some small, sharp pains. I generally don't get cramps, so I didn't know what to expect. That was the downside. Because if I got cramps, I could say that, I have an idea what the pain you should feel like. But I was there and I got, some sharp pain. And I was like, maybe it has started finally because the people said, we'll try again tomorrow, but the medicine is still in the system, so probably that's it. So I was there and then it kept getting a little more frequent. So I realized, yes, it has actually started. But at that time, it was cool, like, hard girl, I can take kids. It's not anything. But let's say 2-3 hours passed and I realized that this is getting interesting. So when I was pregnant, I had a conversation with my MD at the office. He was asking me, what plans have I made and things like that? Have I decided to take an epidural? I was like, no, I'm going through the natural way. I remember that day that I said I was doing the natural thing because I thought I could take pain, but it was a different level. The nurses tell you that the normal labor, it progresses naturally, so 15 hours, yeah? So we expect that the pain will be coming up gradually. For the induction, they are compressing the 15 hours. It's not funny. It started small, but By the time it was 8 p.m., I said, no, I can't do this anymore. And I hadn't gotten anywhere. Oh. By that time, they'll say, oh, maybe 4 cm. And I'm trying to get to 10 cm before I can push. Wednesday night, I'm trying to get to, like, I don't even know how to describe it. So it got to a point, when it's coming, I'm holding my husband's hand. Like, I'm about to break his hand off because then he'll say, hey, you can do this. And I'm like, please, I can't do this. The problem is, I hadn't set up an epidural. I hadn't told them I wanted one or anything. So at this point, what am I supposed to do? I can't tell them that, hey, please go and look for the guy and give me an epidural. So I had to just take it like that. So 9 p.m. came, 10 p.m. came. I hadn't gotten to 10. And I had to be checked every hour or couple of hours. And how they check cry and easy. Because they tell you that if you relax, it's not going to be painful. That's what they tell you in A and C class. But when you get there, you are in pain. How are you going to relax? It's not possible. So when the lady is checking how you have that, Charlie, even that one too is painful. So right now, I'm just a bundle of pain. And at least it was progressing. So from 2 cm, we are going to 4 cm. Then it wasn't like it got stuck at some point and then it became complicated. No, at least by God's grace, the dilation was going on normally. So by, say, 11 o'clock, 11:30, I felt like I want to push. But I hadn't gotten there. So they tell you can't push until you get there. Then it was around 12 a.m. My husband was still there. My mother was still there. My mom's face was all over the place. Like, me cry, like, I felt bad because, Charlie, seeing your daughter in this kind of pain is not a joke. She's had 4 kids herself, but it's a different thing looking at someone doing it. And then my husband too was there. I was pressing his hand. It was nearly broken. I would pull my mom's dress. It was wow. Like, I was in a ward with one other lady, and she was coming for a CS. And she'd be there, she'd be doing kafra, and I'm like, madam, madam, I'm not interested in this kafra right now. Like, I just want this baby out. It was very, very painful. They tell you forget, but see, I've not forgotten. And I'm not in a hurry to go back, in all honesty. It was not funny at all. I was tired, so I really don't remember the sequence of events anymore. At that point, what I do remember is as soon as he came out, there was this huge sense of relief. All the pain stopped. Because at that point, the pain so you know the contractions are coming closer and closer and closer. So it became like one long contraction. There was no break. Initially, I would be able to sleep in between. Like, my mom was shocked. She was like, hey, you are able to sleep while you're in labor. But when it got to the point where I was ready to push, I was just in pain constantly. There was no break. So as soon as he came out, they said his head is here. Just one last push. And I was like, yes, I can see his head. I pushed one last one. I don't even know how I managed to do it because I was really tired at that point. So when the baby's head finally came out and they just pulled him out, there was an immediate sense of relief. Like, all the pain stopped. And it was at that point that I found out that they had actually given me an episiotomy. I didn't even know. Because I was in that much pain that when she cut, I didn't feel it. But as soon as he came out, I was fine. Like, everything was okay. Then it took a few minutes before I started feeling, like there are a few bruises, there's an episiotomy and all of that. But that was the best part of having the baby, like as soon as he came out, and I felt that sense of relief. As for whether they showed him to me, or I saw him on my own, or I don't even remember because I was just so relieved at that point. I know my husband followed them, they went to clean up the baby and all of that, but whether they showed him to me after he came out, or I don't remember, honestly. So when I came home the next day. Yeah, I came home the next day because it was a regular delivery, episiotomy regardless. So we came home and I was happy to be home because I had been in the hospital from Wednesday. So Thursday, I had the baby technically on Thursday around 1 a.m. So Thursday I was in the hospital, so I came home on Friday. And when I came home, then my maternity leave officially had started. So yeah, it was exciting that, yes, I didn't have to go to work all the time, but 2 weeks into it, Charlie, I missed the office because there was no break from work. Like when you go to work, there's an opening time and there's a closing time. Now that you're a mother, there's no opening time and closing time. No. And the baby is new. You are new to this. The baby is new to this. You're all figuring it out as you go along. So it was not easy. Not that I didn't have help. I did have help. My mom was here constantly. She was the one bathing the baby, washing the baby's clothes. I used to be able to take naps and all of that, but she had to go to work because she's not on retirement. So this was some days she's home, some days she's not home. And my husband had paternity leave, but it's not as long as maternity leave. So he had 2 weeks with me in the house and then he went back to work. So the first 2 weeks, there were people in the house, like there was help. Then they started leaving me in the house alone with the baby, and I realized, Charlie, this is no joke because I'm up most of the nights. He used to sleep, I think, better than other babies did because I heard from my friends and their babies would sleep for 30 minutes and things like that. But he used to sleep for maybe 1.5 hours, 2 hours. So I could do things in between. The problem is when he wakes up, you can't sleep, and you should have been sleeping when he was sleeping, right? But it doesn't quite work like that because there are dishes that need to be washed. There are bottles that need to be washed and sterilized. Like there are all sorts of small things you have to do in the house. So this sleep when the baby sleeps thing, it does not work for me, honestly. So I was really like sleep deprived for the first 3 months because, Charlie, it was very stressful keeping an eye on him without having so much sleep myself, especially in the night, because who doesn't love sleeping in the night? I love my night sleep, but I had to wake up 2 to 3 times a night to feed him and make sure he goes back to sleep before I can go back to sleep. And at that point, expressing milk was a struggle. So the breastfeeding was mostly on me. But when I decided to do the mixed feeding, then I would do the milk, give it to the father, and have the father feed him, and then I'll be able to sleep a bit. So it was a challenge, but yes, there was help along the way. So the first one is when they are born immediately. So that one, they're already crying, so it's not such a big deal. Then we went back the day after. So on the Friday when we came home, Saturday we went back for another set of immunizations. That one wasn't so painful, so it was fine. He didn't run a temperature, nothing. It was when we went back for the 6 weeks one. That one is no joke. Hey, that one, he ran temperature. And the para, we had to keep giving him because he was miserable. It was just like when we went to do the circumcision. It wasn't easy at all. So constant para, like they said you should give him 3 times a day, but when he starts getting uncomfortable, I was giving it to him so that he would feel better. So the 6th week wasn't funny. And then there was one after that one. I've forgotten the exact week it is, but that one too, they ran a temperature outside. So generally, the trick is when you're in the car park, give them some para before you get the injection. Right after the injection as well, when you get back into the car, give him some para. When he comes home, he will sleep. It's when he wakes up that you have to keep monitoring to see if the temperature is still high. And if he starts getting uncomfortable again, you give him some para. You know, the site also gets swollen sometimes. So we had lots of advice. Put shea butter on it, wrap an ice cube in a face towel and put it on. Please, I didn't do any of that. I just gave him the para and made sure I didn't hold those areas. Make sure that he's comfortable when he's lying down and all of that. And by the next day, he was fine. So yeah, you just need to watch your baby and figure out what works for him. The advice there you get, but work with what your baby is responding to. That's what I have to say about that. So the circumcision, I don't know, when I found out I was having a boy, it was one of the things that popped up in my mind. I was like, hey, he's going to be circumcised. So we did the circumcision, I think, 2 weeks after he was born. The doctor said we should come back in 2 weeks. I don't know why they chose 2 weeks. Some people do 7 days. But the hospital said we should just come back in 2 weeks. So when we went, we did the ring. And the doctor took him in. We heard him screaming. I was like, hey, what are they doing to my son? But eventually he stopped, and then they came out, and then they're like, oh, the site will bleed a little bit because they had to do a little incision and then and put the ring around it. But generally, they just explained how we should take care of it. And we came back home. We gave him the para, we were putting the jelly on it for that day. And then the next day, we saw that there was still blood on it. And I called the midwife and asked her that, is it still supposed to be bleeding? And she says she's not sure. I should send a picture to see, so that she would see what I'm talking about. If it's not a lot, it's not a big deal. But if it's a lot, then there's a problem. So I took a picture and I sent it to her. And she realized that, no, this is not how it should be. So maybe there's a problem. We should bring him back to the hospital so that they check, just in case. So we went back the next day. And the doctor took a look at it, and then he said, okay, they have to adjust it, that everything looks fine, but it shouldn't be bleeding. So they took him back in. He screamed some more, and they brought him out finally. My heart, but well, they brought him out finally, and what happened? They said they just repositioned the ring. Where it was initially was sitting on a blood vessel or something. They just said some nice explanation, but basically we did it twice. And the second time, they did it well, they positioned it well, and then it stopped bleeding. I don't know if the way they positioned it worked though, because there's a little extra flesh around it, but the doctor said it's fine, everything is okay. So it's not a perfect mushroom like you would expect, but it's actually, it's not covering the AE anymore. I don't know what they call it anymore. But bottom line is, the ring worked, but we had to do it twice, and the boy was in a lot of pain, so it wasn't easy. Like the skin eventually fell off and everything healed nicely, but the experience is not a nice one. Honestly, you feel for the boy, because the screaming that he screamed, I've not heard him scream like that ever again, honestly. Okay, so my husband doesn't know because he was going to work. Well, at that time, when we started introducing solids, he was about 4 months. So it wasn't solids per se, but we wanted him to have a feel of how to drink cocoa, because the breastfeeding honestly wasn't going well. I wasn't producing enough. I initially started producing milk 2 days after he was born, but he was always hungry. And there were personally, there's no point making your baby struggle because you're trying to do the exclusive thing. Once he's full and he's not reacting to the food you've given him, I think everything is fine. Because he was a very hungry boy. My breast milk was not keeping up with his demands. So we were feeding him breast milk and SMA. So it got to a point, we figured that by 6 months, we won't have the help that we needed to keep him in the house constantly anymore. So by 6 months, we're thinking we'll take him to school, crèche. But if he was going to go to crèche, if I express the breast milk, we're not sure that the expressed breast milk will be enough for him the entire day. So we wanted to get to a point where he's okay drinking something else apart from the SMA as well, because the SMA, he would drink only so much and pee it out, and then he'd be hungry again. So we wanted something heavier. So by 4 months, we wanted to introduce something like cocoa so that we would see whether he would take it, rather than trying to introduce it while he's also entering a new environment, being the crèche. We wanted to do that at home. He gets okay with it. Then when he goes to school, it won't be so much of a fuss getting to eat something else if the breast milk supply runs out. That was the plan. So my husband didn't know, because I had told him, but he said no. He said no. So his mom had come in at that time to help take care of the baby. So my mom had done her bit, then his mom also came in. Then I was like, Ma, see, this is the plan. Said doesn't know. So please, let's try and do this one on the down low. So around 4 or 5 months, we gave him a little bit, not so much. We were just trying to get him to get used to it. So 4 or 5 months, he started drinking cocoa. And it was the regular corn cocoa, like the mole cocoa. and would add SMA to it, and then he would drink. And truth is, he was very fine. Like, there were no complications whatsoever. The 6 months, I understand, like, it is best practice, all of that. But see, if your son is hungry, your baby is hungry, don't kill yourself. Do what would work for your baby. Like I said, we tried a little bit. We added some soya bean to make sure it was nutritious enough. And he tried it. He liked it. We moved on. This whole 6 months exclusive, it's great. If you have the supply, please do it by all means. I didn't have the supply. I did mixed feeding, and I even introduced solids a little earlier than the 6 month period. And see, my son's weight is higher than most babies his age. Charlie, it's not a joke. That guy is interesting. He's a very interesting baby. It depends on his mood. If he's happy and he wants to play, he'll go to his father because his father has time to play. Because when he comes to me, it's serious business. We are coming to eat, we are going to bath, something. But if he wants to play, he's going to his father. But depending on his mood, and it's interesting because my younger sister comes to us a lot here. And she looks just like me. So when she comes in, he's immediately he wants to go to her. And we thought initially it was because she looks like me, but we'll be in the same room. But this boy will be crying that he wants to go to my younger sister. So it's funny. When she comes in, that's what he wants. He wants to go to my sister. When my mom comes here too, he won't say he necessarily wants to go to her, but when she walks out of the room, he starts crying. So he's a very interesting little boy. When anybody comes in, he's not so shy. He goes to people. But say that he has a preference, I can't say that. It depends on his mood. Every baby and how soon they meet their milestones. But in general, we got him sitting around the 6 month mark. We started a little earlier, but of course, I mean, he wasn't stable like that. So we bought one of those pillows that you put them in, and then you stuff things around him so that he'll sit up and all of that. He'll sit in it for a few minutes and start crying. So the pillow didn't work out. Eventually, what we did was we just prop him up in the sofa, put, what do you call them, pillows around him to ensure that he stays upright for a bit. So we were doing those exercises little by little. Then it got to a point he was sitting all right, but he was leaning forward when he was sitting. And it was generally progressing okay. We're fine with the rate at which he was meeting the milestones. His neck, funny enough, few days after he came home, this boy was moving his neck. It was very surprising, not in a coordinated manner, but he was raising his head. I was like, why so early? Where are you going? But then it wasn't so stable. Eventually became stable. Then we got to sitting. Then the crawling was the surprising one. This boy started crawling backwards. I don't even understand how that happened. He's trying to crawl and he's rather going backwards instead of coming forward. But eventually he got the hang of it. And then since then, he's just been zooming around the house. The rate at which he can crawl. We tried to do it because we were walking, but we tried to match him to see if we can go that fast. None of us can go that fast. I don't know how he does it. And I was just waiting for him to walk. Once he walks, he starts running. We know because the rate at which he can crawl, running is very easy for him. And I don't understand how he's not walking, but he can climb everything. He climbs onto the dining chair. He climbs onto the dining table. He climbs onto the sofa. He climbs onto my mother's center table. Climbs onto he climbs everything. If you take him outside, he will climb the balustrades outside. So your eye has to be on him all the time. So as to the milestones, we don't have any problem. Just that he's not walking yet, but he's just about to turn 1 year. So there's really no problem there. We're not so stressed about that. But otherwise, everything else, just it's surprising. Do you read to him? If you give him a book, he will read the book to you. You can't read the book to him. So we tried. We bought him a couple of books. He has shredded some of them. And the other one, he looks at the pictures when he's in the mood. But read to that boy. No, you cannot do that. So when you want him to sleep, first you have to bath. Then you have to feed. When he was younger, that would immediately put him to sleep. You bath him, you feed him, he would go right off to sleep. Now that he's older, you still have to do that, but give a little time. So you bath him, you play a bit, then you give him his last bottle of Cerelac. He'll be fine. That's when he'll fall asleep. That is if he hasn't had a nap too close to his bedside. Sometimes there's nothing you can do to avoid it. He would jump around the whole day, and around 4 p.m., that's when he decides to sleep. He wake up at 7 p.m., and that is it. You know you're going to sleep at 12 a.m. that day because he's not going to sleep. So on those days, there's really nothing you can do. But on the normal day when he has his nap around 1 p.m. to about, say, 3 p.m., you're fine. Once you give him his bottle, he goes right to sleep, and then you know you have some 4 or 5 hours before he wakes up for another bottle. Trying to figure out what he wants when he wants it. That is very challenging. So babies cry. We know babies cry. Why they're crying, you have no idea. It has become try your luck. So sometimes he's crying and he wants food. Sometimes he's crying and he wants you to pick him up. Sometimes he's just crying because he's crying. There's nothing wrong with him. He doesn't cry when his nappy is wet. He doesn't cry because he saw them. No, that we know. But the rest of the time, we don't know why he's crying. So that is very challenging, trying to figure out why he's crying and how to address his need at that point in time. 80% of the time, he's hungry. The other times, he wants you to just pick him up, bottom line. But lately, he started this cry where somebody walks out of the room and he starts crying because why did the person walk out of the room? So the person has to come back into the room if you want him to stop crying, or you give him something to distract him. So that's the challenging part about this, figuring out why your baby is crying and making the baby comfortable. The other thing I can talk about is combining work, like going back to work and knowing the baby is in the house. I wasn't so concerned when I went back because it was my mom that was in the house with him. So I was comfortable. I mean, she raised me, so I know she can take care of the baby. However, as soon as I come home, she's off because she's tired. They're older, so of course they get tired quicker than we do. So while I have gone to work the whole day, I'm back around, say, 4:35 because the law says you have an hour off. I get home, I'm tired, and immediately I have to switch into taking care of a baby. And at that time, he's 3 months, so you're still getting to know your baby. So it was quite a challenge going back to work because I come home and there's no break. I can't come home and take a nap and then I'm refreshed and I can now take care of my baby. No, I had to go straight from work to come back home to take care of the baby. And even in the night, you won't get that much sleep anyway. So I was tired so much of the time when I went back to work initially. As he grew older, the sleep became a little better because he stopped waking up twice. Now he's waking up once. So at least you're getting a little more rest. And now you have an idea what he's crying for and those things. So you can take naps in between. My husband and I can just leave the baby and say, hey, take the baby, I'm going to sleep. So the challenging part was going back to work. Not so much because I was worried about the baby, but because once I get home, there's no rest. Well, So my son can be very troublesome, honestly, because he's a baby. What does he know? He's very energetic, he's very strong, very bubbly. But there are some days the boy is so sweet. Like, he'll just come and say, like, he doesn't, I don't even know how to describe it. The boy will come, he'll just smile at you. And you're just excited, like, wow. He'll come and just say, bye-bye. And you're so excited. Wow, he's actually talking. He'll just come and hug you. Come and just, Charlie, there are some days he's just the sweetest little boy ever. And there's so much reward when you try and teach him something and he gets it. It's so exciting, like, wow, my baby's smart. He sees somebody going and he can just wave and say bye-bye. Or he'll look at you and say, mama, like, you're so happy. You have said chair like 1,000 times. He's not responded, but one day he gets up and says chair. You're just so excited. It just makes you so happy. But I think the biggest part is like just looking at him and wow, this person was inside me. And this is what was inside me. Like, it's so exciting when you see the baby. Like, I was worried when he was in my stomach. Like, I couldn't see him. I didn't know what he looked like. I didn't know whether he had 10 fingers, 10 toes. He came out and he was just perfect. Everything was wonderful. And then, wow, I made this. That's one of the most exciting things about him.
This video was brought to you by My Adorable One.